So I got early access to Varesa, and I gotta say, she's one of the wackiest characters I've ever seen. From the way she fights and fails to fight in a hilarious way, to the weirdly powerful damage she can output, although there is a catch. And then finally, we have this alter ego she puts on to act as a luchador. Seriously, Hoyo went too far with all these crazy animation differences. Anyway, in this video, I'm gonna share my first impressions of Constellation Zero Varesa. I'll compare her to some other units because why not? And we're gonna take a look at her whole kit from a high-level perspective. But at the same time, I'll also show a couple of teams she excels in. Most importantly, I'll also point out some of the quirks I've experienced when playing her, so that you can decide for yourself if Varesa is worth pulling for. Before we start, as a quick disclaimer, the footage you're about to watch is from the Creator Experience server, so content shown here is subject to change. On top of that, in this video, I'm going to provide a light rundown of Varesa, but on release day, I will post her full guide and weapon showcase with all calculations. Alright, to start off, the majority of this video, Varesa is going to be using the new Long Night's Oath artifact set, which will boost her plunging attacks by up to 100%, and she's also equipped with the fully refined Wit Sith. And starting with normal attacks, they are pretty hilarious. It's a 3-hit combo, and the first and last hits are especially peculiar. The first hit, if you stop attacking, literally makes her fall down on the ground. Obviously it's just an animation, but pretty funny. And then the last hit, well, I don't need to tell you what happens in case Daddy YouTube decides to demonetize the video. Still, the most unique thing about her is that she can actually launch herself into air by doing a charge attack, and then you can follow it up with a plunge attack that's positioned to land on her cushions. Now, I'd say this charge attack is pretty slow and eats up a whole lot of stamina. However, while in combat, it can generate Night Soul points, so this will be the main way to fight with her. But here's the thing, her skill is actually going to enable those plunge attacks because when you tap it, she lunges forward, deals some damage, and then the next time you press her normal attack, it instead immediately unleashes the charge attack without costing any stamina. Not only that, but after using her skill, she also gains resistance to interruption. It's actually pretty good. We can see here it takes a while before she gets knocked out of Ruin Guard's spinning attack, which is the ultimate way to test the super armor, and you can even see she's able to follow up with a plunge attack too. Now, what happened here afterwards? Well, that's a different story, and after 2 of Varesa's lives, the conclusion is that the skill does make plunging quite easy. By the way, the skill can also be held down for exploration mode, in which Varesa then turns into Sonic, which boosts her running speed, and if that's not enough, she can run over water and she can launch herself into air when jumping. And like with other Natlan units, you can switch to her in the middle of other animations while in Natlan to keep the momentum going. I also compared her speed to Shalonen's. It seems like she's quite a bit faster than her, and she seems to be even faster than Mawika's bike, although Mawika will travel a longer distance. However, when dashing, Mawika covers less distance and is slower than Varesa. Just keep in mind, all of these comparisons were made with C0 units, but overall, I'd say Varesa's running is pretty great. But going back to combat, you might have noticed her Night Soul bar sometimes will light up. Well, this can be achieved when she fills up the bar and does a plunging attack, after which she then enters this state called Fiery Passion. And during this mode, she gains additional skill charge, and all of her damage will be improved for 15 seconds. Not only that, but I believe all of her animations become different. Like, those normal attacks are no longer clumsy, and she fights like a luchador, and even when plunging, she now uses her elbow instead of the butt. So she literally becomes a masked luchador while in Fiery Passion state. Now, I will say that her normal and charge attacks, as well as the skill, won't really benefit that much from this state, but the plunges and the regular burst will gain a good amount of boost. But the next time during Fiery Passion state Varesa uses a plunge attack, she will consume all Night Soul points and exit this mode. However, in result, this switches her to Apex Drive state, and allows her to use a different version of the burst called Fiery Mountain Toss, which costs 30 energy, and you can see the icon changes here as well. You'll also notice this big visual change too. However, there's only few seconds to react to this moment before the opportunity to use the burst is over, since Apex Drive doesn't really last that long, although at least while it lasts, she has a very good resistance to interruption. But basically, this special burst, or as I like to call it, the mini burst, is really just a powerful plunge attack, and it is treated by the game as a plunge attack. Like, this mini burst and the plunge attack she does in Fiery Passion state are 2 of the hardest hitting attacks that can easily reach over 200k damage. Otherwise, if you use her regular burst, which costs 70 energy, she will stomp the enemy with her feet and immediately enter Fiery Passion state, which means she's also in her Night Soul mode. Look, this all might sound confusing, but at the end of the day, her rotations and combos are very simple, since she can literally generate her Night Soul state from one skill and plunge. For example, after setting up the buffs, you start with her skill, then tap attack which launches her into air, and after plunging, do the skill and plunge again. Now she has opportunity to use the mini burst, which I do recommend using it, and afterwards, you can complete this same combo 1 or 2 more times. Basically, I was able to achieve this combo up to 3 times before I was stopped by her skill's cooldown. However, while in Abyss, I found that doing the whole combo 2 times followed by 1 more skill plunge is usually when the buffs run out, or she won't always have enough energy for the 3rd mini burst, so from 2nd rotation onwards, it was actually possible then to do this nice rotation by starting a quick mini burst even after the 1st plunge. But really, her skill is going to be the most important thing to enable her plunges. If it's on cooldown, it's really not worth doing those plunges manually with the slow charge attack, unless of course you're in open world. Oh, and one more thing. I know a lot of people probably already farmed up Obsidian Codex, so you might be wondering, since she only consumes Night Soul points once every other plunge, how reliable is this set? Well, the truth is, you just need to set up the combo a bit differently. Basically, before you use any other teammates, it's best to use her skill in plunge so she enters fiery state, and then switch to others to set up their buffs or attacks. Then switch back and what do you know, she's still in her fiery state. So this means she maintains her Night Soul points and state even when switching back and forth, which is super nice. And yeah, overall, you should be able to maintain the 4-set bonus pretty reliably, since after consuming the points, she gains the crit buff for 6 seconds, although the 2-set buff will be active every other plunge. Still, you might be thinking, what about the regular burst? Is it actually useful then? Well, because of how much energy it costs and the damage it does, it is barely better or even worse without Fiery Passion state, I'd say for my first impressions so far, there is no reason to use it in challenging content. The mini burst is simply better in every way. However, in world exploration, heck, it's a hilarious move I like to use once in a while. But overall, that's the basic gist of Varesa's kit. There's also passive talents, but they're honestly quite simple. The first one gives additional multiplier to her plunge attack after using her skill, and it's even better when during Fiery Passion state, so just another reason why it's important to do plunges with her skill. And then the second passive grants her a 35% attack boost after triggering Night Soul Burst, which can stack up to 2 times with 2 separate timers. Anyway, I've talked long enough about Varesa's kit. Let me quickly show you some of my favorite team comps with her. Okay, so one team I'm sure is on everyone's mind would be with Shen Yun, and yes, it's a really good comp. Shen Yun boosting plunge damage is super useful here, and because she's also an awesome healer, adding Farina into the mix is a no-brainer choice, provided you have her of course. Still, there is one small thing we're forgetting, Iansan. So I'm gonna post Iansan's full guide video on release day, but long story short, Iansan is basically the best buffer for Varesa since Iansan's attack boost is best utilized by units who move a lot, which is very thematic since she's a fitness guru, and seeing how Varesa moves so much, the two work really well together. And so basically, this team I'm showing is probably one of the best Varesa team comps. However, there's also Chevy teams. I especially like the comp of Mawika, Iansan, and Chevy because Varesa can easily help Mawika fill up her bursts fighting spirit, so while Varesa is the one staying on field, Mawika can still unleash her super powerful burst every rotation. Not only that, but both Iansan and Chevres, especially if she's C6, provide superb buffing for the 2 damage dealers. Now, I also tried out some Dendro comps, and while I'm running my mouth, you can see how often Varesa triggers reactions, and I'll be honest, they don't trigger super often, and I think that's because her skill, charge attack, and the mini burst all share the same ICD. So yeah, plunges will always cause reactions, so that can be some nice aggravate damage, but overall, I wouldn't say these Dendro teams felt bad. I mean, they were pretty good, and I still love some fun Hyper Bloom or Quick Bloom teams, but overall, they didn't feel as powerful as the other 2 first archetypes I've mentioned. So what do I think about Varesa so far? I think we'd get along pretty well seeing how she eats so much. She and I both have that in common when you look at how much I order from Taco Bell. But on a serious note, I feel like the plunging playstyle appeal will differ from person to person. I personally found it to be easier to play with her than with Xiao, since she always ascends to the same height, so there's no finicky stuff going on once you plunge with her. Not that I'm saying this is better than Xiao's playstyle, but I personally found this to be more enjoyable. Although, other than that, it's quite clear Hoyo put a lot of passion into her visually, and based on my early first impressions, I'd say there's enough depth to her kit too. I'm only afraid that she might get nerfed, and that's because her jingling bells are quite noticeable when you stop walking. And those of you who played Xiangling in the early days know what I'm talking about, since now there's barely any sound left to them. Anyway, hope you found this short video enjoyable. I've been dealing with something stressful past few days, so I'm sorry if it's not long enough, but on release day, you can expect all the proper showcasing and numbers for Varesa, and there will be in-depth Iansan's guide too. So please make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button on this video. Thanks, and see you very soon.